The tiger's got my head in its mouth. I thought, this is my blood. I'm laying in my blood.
It had its horns facing me, and it just kept ramming me and ramming me. It'd back up and then ram me again.
His hand is bleeding, just pouring the blood. I couldn't believe what was happening to us.
It's everyone's worst nightmare, being eaten alive by a wild animal. In this episode, 3 remarkable stories of caged animals that break free and become killers on the loose. What's it like when you become human prey?
There it is.
Gary Brown was nearly ripped apart during a deadly chimp attack on a sightseeing trip in West Africa.
He turned and started screaming and charged. I didn't know that they get up to the strength of 7 men.
On the west coast of Africa, deep in the Sierra Leone rainforest, a large captive colony of chimpanzees lives peacefully on the 100-acre Takugama Chimpanzee Sanctuary. Bruno, a 200-pound alpha male, is the colony's leader.
An alpha male is the term used to describe the highest-ranking male chimpanzee. The alpha male is the chimpanzee who can win a fight with the other males.
In the wild, Bruno would rule a territory at least 50 times the size of the Takugama Sanctuary. Less than 40 minutes away, Texan telecommunications engineer Gary Brown is enjoying a day off at his hotel. Working here is a dream come true.
They're hiring in Africa. Anybody want to go to Africa? And I held my hand up and said, I'll do it. I wanted to work overseas.
Yeah, let's do it.
This weekend, Gary's decided to head up to the mountains with a colleague, along with his friend Melvin Mama and their driver, Issa.
I said my days off is going to be spent going and seeing Africa, real Africa.
Issa drives them deep in the rainforest towards the Takugama Chimp Sanctuary.
He had told me for 2 weeks before about this place, and other Americans had said, yeah, you got to go up there and get pictures or something to see.
It's the largest chimp refuge in the world. Bruno is the alpha male. He's so big.
Yes, I'm from Texas. We grow prairie dogs bigger than any ape.
You'll be glad he's behind an electric fence.
Yeah.
At the Takugama Sanctuary, Bruno keeps a close eye on his keepers.
If you're in captivity, you spend a lot of time just watching, and they would see these locks being opened and closed many times a day, and be watching very carefully to see how to get out. The chimpanzees presumably took a rock and banged it against the lock. The chimps in this part of the world know how to use rocks. Very few other animals do that. Chimpanzees and humans are really the tool-making and tool-using masters.
No one knows for sure how it happened, but it's a breakout. Bruno and 30 other chimps escape their enclosure and head for the sanctuary's perimeter fence and the jungle beyond.
This is really the first taste of freedom that this chimpanzee has had.
Unaware of the breakout, Gary and his friends continue to the chimp sanctuary.
You just look up in the mountains and you're just mesmerized. The trees, the size of the trees, the canopy.
Bruno rips through the dense jungle. This is his territory now.
He was exploring his world, seeing what world outside the sanctuary was like, and is probably afraid.
Like the other chimps at the sanctuary, Bruno was brought here as an orphan. His mother was killed in the controversial bushmeat trade.
In Sierra Leone, like much of the rest of Africa, people eat chimpanzees and other primates for food. They would have seen their mother and probably other members of their community shot and killed when they were young. The chimpanzees would have that experience. They would remember strangers coming. They would remember the gunfire. And it's probably a reasonable assumption on the chimpanzee's part that a strange human being is a dangerous creature.
Bruno hears an approaching car. The chimp immediately sizes up the situation.
Hey, slow down.
What is that? Something moving in the bushes. Hey, what is that?
I don't know, man, but I want to get a shot of it. Come on, let's go.
All of a sudden, out of the brush, this big black thing jumped out. First thing I thought was, cool, you know, I'm seeing something in the wild.
Windows. Turn the windows up.
Slow down, man. Jesus.
Issa quickly recognizes that the huge chimp is charging. It's time to get out.
Issa, he just threw the car in reverse and just took off backwards.
But fleeing only makes things worse.
He caught up and he was level with the front window.
Bruno seems to have disappeared.
And all of a sudden, it was just like an explosion.
A chimpanzee that's 120 pounds is going to be mostly bone and muscle with not a lot of fat. So you have a very compact and powerful creature.
Fighting for their lives, they somehow manage to shove the furious chimp out the window. Melvin's hand has been bitten to shreds.
Right here, all this was gone.
If you run, you're showing that you're afraid of him, you're weak, and he'll take advantage of that. Basically, what they're doing is they're doing damage to whatever they can get a hold of and whatever is exposed to them.
Not only is Melvin losing a lot of blood, but bacteria from Bruno's saliva could be spreading through his bloodstream. With 2-inch fangs and jaw muscles 3 times denser than in humans, a chimp's bite can be deadly. They need to get to a hospital, fast.
And we were yelling at him, slow down. He said, find a place to turn around, we got to get out of here.
Panicking, He misses a vital turnoff. They're lost. Terrified, they hit a dead end.
There was a gate that stood probably 10 to 12 feet tall.
With their savage attacker hot on their trail.
I couldn't believe what was happening to us.
They only have one option.
We're stalled.
The collision kills the engine. This car isn't going anywhere.
We're on the hill. Let's push it, guys. Let's get a jump start.
But Bruno hasn't finished protecting his new territory.
When they tried to escape, that showed the chimpanzee that they were afraid and vulnerable and may well have triggered a chase response.
There it is. It's coming back.
In the Sierra Leone rainforest, American Gary Brown and his party have been attacked by an enormous chimp.
I was blacked out, knocked out, I don't know whatever, but I lost a little bit of time. I don't remember people getting out of the car.
Horrified, he spots Melvin on the ground. Bruno is chewing him apart. The chimp takes Melvin's foot in his mouth and bites down. Gary's adrenaline kicks in.
I was angry and just mad. Instead of running, I just started looking for a weapon. That's when I lost it. I had enough. And everything that came over me, came through me. All of a sudden, I had total clarity.
When the chimpanzee saw Gary standing his ground, he would have seen an opponent who was not afraid, an opponent who was angry, and an opponent who could really inflict some damage of his own.
I had the tree turned up and was ramming him. And he was trying to get up, and I kept ramming him on the ground.
It was a very powerful and hurtful blow, and that was absolutely the right thing to do because it convinced the chimp that if it kept up this attack, it was going to get hurt.
Suddenly, Bruno bolts off.
The fight was over with him because he kept his back to me. And what I seen when we attacked each other, eye contact, facial expressions, that was totally gone on him now.
Melvin is badly wounded. His foot is completely mangled.
He's bleeding to death. And he goes, "I'm going to die here." And I told him, I said, "No, you die here, I die here with you. I'm not leaving you." He's my friend, you know.
And there's no sign anywhere of their driver.
Where's this one? He went for help. Come on, we gotta go. We gotta go.
I could hear chimpanzees everywhere. We were totally surrounded, and we took off down the mountain. These chimps never jumped out. They stayed in the jungle. I kept looking ahead. And finally, we made it out. We made it to the road, the main road.
More than an hour later, a passing truck picks them up and takes them to a nearby hospital. Later that day, Gary learns that Issa was mauled to death by the other runaway chimps. Doctors are unable to save Melvin's foot and 3 of his fingers.
There ain't 5 minutes don't go by I don't see it. I'm going to have to picture it in my head every day the rest of my life.
If you get bit by a snake or a shark or something, it's kind of impersonal and you sort of expect it. But for a chimpanzee, something that is clearly very similar to us in lots of ways, it would just seem a lot more personal, I'm sure.
I have no misconceptions. I know Bruno could have taken me apart in a heartbeat. He could have taken me, he was just off guard.
Of the 31 chimpanzees that escaped the sanctuary, 27 were recaptured or returned on their own. 4, including Bruno, are still on the loose. Gary Brown's case is not unique. In May 2007, a silverback male gorilla named Boquito escaped from a Rotterdam zoo. Petronella Yvonne the Horde was a regular visitor. She adored Boquito. She visited him 4 times a week, always smiling and making eye contact. She felt she had a special bond with the 400-pound gorilla. But on May 18th, 2007, Boquito somehow escaped. He headed straight for Petronella. To a gorilla, a toothy smile is an act of aggression, and now it was payback. Boquito dragged her around the zoo, breaking her arm and wrist. Visitors locked themselves in the cafeteria for safety. Boquito broke down the door, sending tables and chairs flying. Eventually, he was shot with a tranquilizer dart. Petronella never fully healed. Apes are by no means the most dangerous animals in captivity. Some would argue that honor belongs to the tiger. It can slay any human in its path with a single bite. Despite their deadly reputation, people still try to contain and control these remarkable creatures. In the 1920s, when touring circuses and wild animal acts were all the rage, Mabel Stark was the Tiger Queen. She would take 18 tigers at a time into the ring. But not even the Tiger Queen could conquer the basic instincts of a hardwired killer. She was attacked 18 times. The worst took place in 1928 at a show in Bangor, Maine. Stalking her from behind, one of her beloved cats lashed out at her left leg, almost severing it above the knee. Smelling blood, a second tiger jumped off his pedestal and pushed Mabel to the ground, mauling her savagely. Although doctors felt she would never survive, Mabel miraculously recovered and was eventually back in the ring with the animals she loved. As Mabel knew all too well, containing tigers is a risky business. Animal lover Jan Gold was also savaged by a captive tiger. When it broke free at a zoo, her lavish fundraising dinner turned into a living nightmare.
He just reached up and grabbed my bag. He bit into my head, and the next thought was, am I gonna survive this?
Go for help! Go for help! Go for help!
Zoo Boise is one of the most popular attractions in southern Idaho. The stars here are brothers Taiga and Tundra, a newly arrived pair of 2-year-old, 600-pound Siberian tigers. Also known as Amur tigers, they are at the zoo to provide an important gene pool to help ensure the survival of the species. Tigers are highly endangered. There are now more of them living in captivity than in the wild. But keeping one of the world's most deadly hunters behind bars comes with big risks.
There have been at least 45 deaths by tigers in captivity of humans over the last 10 years. And there have been 115 injuries serious enough to make the media.
Tonight, Jan is helping to stage a fundraiser called the Feast for the Beast, a name that will soon prove darkly ironic.
This was the largest fundraiser at the zoo. So there was going to be a silent auction, a live auction, some entertainment. All of this was on the park grounds at the zoo.
The money will help build better facilities for the zoo's animals.
I believe in doing what I can for the animals. I love animals. It's always been a fascination for me.
In the wild, taiga and tundra would roam a territory 18 times the size of Manhattan. They are natural-born killers who can never be completely tamed. They can slaughter with a single bite.
You can see animals at zoos, for example, that look at children running back and forth in front of the cages. There is an interest in chasing these children.
Nearby in the tiger enclosure, taiga and tundra are getting increasingly hungry. In the wild, they would learn to kill and eat large prey, even bears. But on the menu tonight is 10 pounds of raw horse meat and vitamins. While the tiger's meal is being prepared, Jan takes care of last-minute details.
I had to run some errands and pick some items up for the auction that was going to take place that evening, and it was just kind of setting things up.
Around the zoo, workers are finishing off their chores. One of the tiger cages is accidentally left unlocked, but no one notices.
Hello, everyone. Allison, it's wonderful to see you. You enjoying yourself? Excellent. Well, the barbecue should almost be ready, and then it'll be over for you. Excellent.
Nightfall, and the zoo's social event of the year is underway. It's a good turnout.
Dinner was kind of buffet style and then sitting under a tent, and there was a little bit of entertainment, and then we went on to the live auction.
In the nearby tiger cage, taiga and tundra are most likely agitated by all the commotion. Unlike the tigers, Jan and the others at the party have already been well fed. And now, it's time to stretch their legs.
I got up with some friends and we just decided to walk around. And we saw the manager walk by.
Hello, ladies.
Hey, how are you?
You want to feed the boys?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Well, that meant he was feeding the tigers.
Oh, that would be great.
Just gonna phone ahead. You guys keep going. Yeah, Steve?
We weren't the only ones invited. There were other people too, mostly board members and family of the board members or friends.
Jan and her guests are excited. They can't wait to see the big cats feed.
Here we go.
As I walked down the hall, there was 3 cages on my right.
Jan spots something strange.
The last cage, the gate was wide open, and we noticed that. And we just kind of, well, obviously they must know it's open. And we talked about it, thinking, well, maybe they are going to direct the tigers into the first 2 cages.
Instead, one of the tigers is now heading towards the third open cage. And face to face with Jan.
All of a sudden, there was a tiger in there.
Hello, ladies. How are you doing? You want to feed the boys?
At a zoo fundraiser in Boise, Idaho, a cage door has accidentally been left open. And now, board member Jan Gold is face to face with Taiga, a 600-pound Siberian tiger on the loose.
It probably never had the door open before. It didn't know what to expect, but it moved forward and it could keep moving forward.
He is 600 pounds. I mean, his head was, you know, into my hip area. That's how tall he was.
The tiger was probably as surprised as Jan Gould was that they were face to face. And it didn't know what to do, but it did know there was an animal in front of it.
At that point, my focus was seeing if I could get this gate shut and keep the tiger in there.
But that's easier said than done. Taiga's still not sure how to react.
He may not have even seen her as prey because he had never had any experience with live prey. She was just a moving object. But something deep inside said, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
He's moving toward me. I mean, it's a force moving toward me. It was like a few conscious, slow steps because he wasn't stopping, and he was right there.
Desperate, Jan tries to buy herself some time.
I held my purse in front of him, trying to get him distracted.
The only thing you can do in that situation is try to distract the tiger. And those who survive often survive because the tiger is distracted. People throw stones or sticks.
And that's when I realized the people were leaving. I saw a couple people with terrified looks on their faces because he wasn't stopping.
The tiger hasn't attacked yet, most likely because Jan's looking it in the eyes.
You want to look big. You want to face it.
In the wild, tigers prefer to attack their prey from behind. Without realizing, Jan makes a tragic mistake.
I was down, and it was very surreal.
When she turned around, she provided the framework for the tiger to see, aha, this is prey. And it was at that point that 10 million years of evolution kicked in and it tried to be a tiger.
I mean, he just reached up and grabbed my back and just brought me down.
When the tiger is attacking a wild animal, it will grab it by the neck and try and drag it down and break the animal's neck and crush the trachea until it can't breathe anymore, and then it often drags it off to feed.
I can feel his chest over my back. He bit into my head, and the next thought was, am I gonna survive this?
His powerful 4-inch canines can easily puncture Jan's neck vertebrae, forcing them apart, eventually breaking her spinal cord.
He had no experience, he didn't know where to bite, but he bit, and he grabbed her head, and he kept on going.
All the others can do is look on in horror.
I thought he actually bit through and crushed my skull, and it was so loud. And then he came to a point and just stopped, and he held me there. He just sort of held me.
A police officer hired as security for the event takes aim.
You gotta shoot the tiger! Shoot the tiger! Get up! Hey!
For the veteran cop, it's tricky getting a clean shot. He fires slightly over Taiga's head just to scare him off. Startled, Tiger retreats to his cage and is finally locked up.
The bullets was enough to surprise the tiger to move back. It had never experienced something like this.
Unfortunately, in the shootout, a bullet has accidentally struck Jan in the hip, shattering the top of her femur.
I'm laying on the ground, and I can't move from the waist down, or I can't feel anything.
Jan is rushed to the hospital. Her injuries are horrific.
They didn't know if I'd walk again. I had so many nerves that were damaged because that bullet, when it hit my bone, it exploded. And so I still have lots of shrapnel in there. My hip had to be rebuilt and a lot of nerves were severed. I've lost probably about a third of the nerve and muscle activity in my leg.
It takes more than 2 years for Jan to get over the ordeal, and there aren't just the physical scars to deal with.
There was a period of time where every time I closed my eyes, I'd be reliving it under a different scenario. That was one of the things I had to go through and recover from.
The reason Jan Gold is alive today is the tiger was too young, too inexperienced. It didn't know how to deal a fatal blow. But at the end of the day, a tiger is a tiger, and it will not have lost its tigerness.
For the last 8 years, Taiga and Tundra have continued to live in Zoo Boise with no further incidents. To avoid conflict, most captive animals are kept away from humans. But what about those bred specifically to attack, like bulls? Every 7th of July, locals and tourists gather in Pamplona, Spain to outrun a pack of angry bulls. It's a controversial event that dates back to the 16th century. As many as 300 participants are injured each year. 14 have been killed since 1910. In 1995, Matthew Tassio fell while trying to avoid a charging bull. Just 22, Tassio became the first American to die on the streets of Pamplona. Even matadors with years of training can never completely control a powerful bull. In 1947, top bullfighter Manuel Rodriguez Sanchez finally met his match. Going in for the kill, Sanchez was savagely gored, his femoral artery slashed by the animal's jagged horns. The man everyone thought could tame the brute force of a bull was pronounced dead hours later. Half a century later, police officer Kenneth Shaw also found out the hard way what it's like to try to stop a 1,400-pound runaway bull.
And it was on top of me, slamming me into the ground, and I felt the pain go up to my chest. This thing ain't stopping.
Just north of Boston, in Lowell, Massachusetts, a controversial event is underway, a bloodless bullfight. In this version of the event, the animals are not killed. Nonetheless, bulls that are used are much more aggressive than regular farm animals.
They're wiry, they're fit, they're athletic, they're fast, they're angry. So their, if you like, threshold for aggression is very different. So it's comparing a Labrador with a pit bull.
As this enormous 1,400-pounder waits to face the matador, he gets increasingly worked up.
When they're confined, when they're frightened, they get sometimes mean and certainly unpredictable. So stress, fear is really the big danger signal for bulls that will get them to do things that in nature they would never do normally.
And for this bull, that means busting out of his trailer, one way or another. Nearby, Lowell police officers Maggie Malik and Kenneth Shaw are on duty.
Basically, your job was to keep the patrons from not coming from the facility with any type of alcohol or anything like that.
Gorgeous, hot, bright, sunny day. We had over 300 cars. We almost had to close the gates because we couldn't fit another car in.
Maggie's main concern is that she doesn't have to watch any of the fight.
I didn't want to see it because I don't agree with an animal to be antagonized and ridiculed, and I felt this was inhumane.
Their real problem, however, is a few hundred yards away in the bull's trailer. The noise is pushing the animal over the edge.
There was a lot of alcohol flowing. There's a lot of banging around and noise and music, and that's pretty nasty cocktail for a bull, really. You have the makings of a bull that is going to be, if you like, out of his mind with anger.
Suddenly, panic rips through the crowd milling around outside.
All of a sudden, I see people start to run and start screaming.
Kenneth races around the corner and comes face to face with a half-ton nightmare. Somehow, the angry bull is broken loose.
Now, all of a sudden, I'm in a situation where I have to deal with that animal that's running rampant.
There's no truth in the belief that red specifically is antagonistic to bulls. Movement is the biggest single factor which triggers a bull attack.
The bull zeroes in on a target.
The gentleman was basically with his back up against the bed of the pickup truck, and the bull just kept slamming him into the back end of the pickup truck. The strength of this animal was truly amazing.
If Kenneth doesn't do something quick, the man will be crushed to a pulp. The diamond-like tip of the bull's horns can easily gore into soft tissues.
I just started to basically make noises, waving my hands, trying to get its attention. Then turn its attention on me. My adrenaline was just, it just all came so quickly.
Charging at full speed is a wall of muscle.
It was a scary sight.
Nearby, Maggie is unaware that a furious monster is gunning for her partner.
Everybody's screaming, there's music going on, you can't really hear anything.
It charged me, and I jumped on a vehicle that was close. It slammed off that vehicle and then just bounced off. But I knew it could pack a wallop, so I didn't want to get hit with that.
There is no protection against an attack by a determined bull, and especially a bull of that breeding, of that degree of infuriation, of that degree of temper.
Finally, Maggie spots her partner. Kenneth has nowhere to go.
They can really hit like a battering ram. Nothing is going to stop them, really. You'll be punctured. It'll go through your rib cage or some other part of your anatomy.
So they basically threw my body from the side onto the hood of the vehicle to get away from its wrath.
And that made the bull mad. Don't frustrate him and don't antagonize him, because you always know that he can pull all the shots.
It's frustrated. It looks for something else to demolish. It spots Maggie.
He came with a run. He came with a snort. I don't know how to play like that. It's like, oh my God, what do I do with this bull?
She zigzags, desperately trying to lose him, but he sticks to her like a shadow.
They have this real benefit of almost 360 degrees coverage, so it makes them able probably to react more quickly than humans. So if you stand still, the likelihood is that you won't be attacked.
Golly, locked in on my eyes. And that put a chill down my spine.
They do this burst of heavy breath out from the nostrils. And this is carrying a chemical message. I'm loaded with testosterone. I'm really the king guy around here, and you take me on at your peril.
The bull loses interest in Maggie and rushes off the stadium grounds, still fuming. Trying to escape, he heads downtown.
Oh my God!
If the bull can't be stopped, hundreds of lives are now at risk. At a bloodless bullfight in Lowell, Massachusetts, a half-ton bull is on a violent rampage. And now, it's police officer Kenneth Shaw's job to take it down before he reaches the busiest part of town.
I'm thinking that this animal is gonna basically cause a lot of havoc if we don't stop it. I didn't really even know what I was gonna do. I didn't want anybody else to get hurt.
His strength and his power and whatever is going on with him. We're not taught in the police academy how to handle it.
The only way that I'm gonna be able to take it out was if I hit it in the head.
But the bullets barely make a dent.
So the bullets would have hit into the side of that animal, caused it pain, but didn't ultimately penetrate and cause damage to internal organs. All they would have succeeded in doing would be to infuriate the animal. They have very good armor in the form of their thick skin.
The raging bull continues towards the crowd.
And I was just hoping that it wasn't gonna take a left where all the shopping malls were.
Kenneth catches a break. The bull runs off the road and right into an empty parking lot.
In an ideal situation, they would have just tried to contain or keep it in that parking lot, let it calm down.
This is Officer Kenneth Shaw. I need backup. I need backup.
The animal is cornered. It panics. And then it spots a familiar foe.
The bull would have recognized him as that same individual, no doubt, and it was an unfinished battle.
It's now or never for Kenneth.
I have to try to take this out. If I don't, someone else is gonna get hurt.
But again, the bullets have little effect.
This thing ain't stopping. So then all of a sudden it turned and started to do an all-out charge right at me.
They will charge through literally a brick wall.
It was basically literally trying to destroy me, was trying to kill me. You know, it was bulldozing me and bulldozing me into the ground. Every time that I tried to get up and get off the ground, it kind of knew what it was doing. It'd swing its head and swipe at my feet and knock me back on the ground again.
Pressure that they're able to exert, all their weight on your body, you're going to have broken bones and a reshaped face. And the intention is to kill you, is to take you out.
All of a sudden, I felt the pain go up to my chest. It was on top of me, basically slamming me into the ground with its head, with the horn slamming me constantly in my leg area.
The incredibly solid neck and shoulder muscles of the bull don't bend or buckle on impact. It hits like a battering ram. Maggie tries to draw the bull away for the second time.
Seeing Kenny's shattered uniform, seeing the blood on his skin, I at that point was not sure if he had gorged him in a major organ, and that takes you only seconds to bleed out.
The bull is momentarily confused by Maggie's shouts, buying Kenneth just enough time to crawl for cover beside a car.
His knee is gorged. It looked like prime rib. And I know that a lot of grout and dirt and soot, it needs a lot of cleaning, a lot of room for infection, tendon repair, maybe fractured bones.
Kenneth's in bad shape. Time is ticking. Maggie needs to act now. But the bull still wants a piece of Maggie and takes dead aim.
So I said, come on, let's bring it on. Let's go get him. And I shot him right between the eyeballs and on the forehead.
Which is actually the location that is used in slaughter, official slaughter of cattle.
This time, the shot stuns the half-ton bull. He staggers away to the other end of the lot. Meanwhile, it's not looking good for Kenneth.
I looked down and I could see my bones running the back of my leg.
You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine.
The bull is finally put down when police backup arrives at the scene. Kenneth is rushed to the hospital and goes under the knife.
Tore out a piece of my quadricep. And then I also received basically a laceration to one of my testicles. I could bend one knee, but I couldn't bend the other.
2 years later, he finally returns to the police force, a hero.
I get the Medal of Valor for basically my actions that day.
Despite the controversy, bloodless bullfights are still held in some states, including Texas and California.
I could feel the warm blood running down the side of my face.
I have never felt that kind of pain before in my life.
It was a pressure crushing my lower back.
It's everyone's worst nightmare, being eaten alive by a wild animal. In this episode, 3 remarkable stories from the water's edge. What's it like when you become human prey? Monreal was nearly killed when an angry gator savagely attacked him in the water hazard on a Florida golf course.
I was slammed from the back. My shoulder wasn't attached anymore.
The Tampa Palms Golf and Country Club, Florida. The kind of place people come to kick back and enjoy the high life. But its ponds and lakes are also home to creatures that have barely changed since the dinosaurs.
Alligators are very common in Florida, and almost any freshwater system can have alligators in it. And that's one of the things that people need to be aware of, is that just because they haven't seen an alligator in an area doesn't mean there isn't one right now.
The lake by hole 13 is the territory of this 7-foot alligator. He's always hungry, and he's not too picky.
As long as they can catch it and eat it, almost anything is potential prey. And they'll take things as big as deer occasionally.
Golfers on this course are always in striking distance of gators, but no one has been attacked yet. 62-year-old Ike Monreal owns a golf ball retrieval service, diving for lost balls in the lakes here. He normally pairs up with one of his sons, but today, he's working solo.
Well, I get as many as 12,000 balls in a single day. And at this time and point, I was being paid 8 cents per ball.
Ike's been doing this job for the last 15 years and knows how dangerous it can be.
I've been nudged not knowing the alligator was in the water. That happens. They'll stay down for 15, 20 minutes. So I've been bumped, nudged, nipped, tail whipped. Almost all of us divers working in the southeastern United States, we have close calls like that.
The gator is getting hungrier by the minute. The hot weather triggers its need to kill and feed.
Alligator activity is related to temperature. When temperatures get to their highest, alligators are trying to feed on a very regular basis.
That's a big concern for Ike.
When I approach a lake, I'll look and make sure I'm the only participant in the water.
He sees a familiar sight.
Saw the usual 7.5 foot gator that's there all the time.
Ike keeps a close eye on the reptile.
Females occasionally do attack humans, but it's not as common as males. Males get a lot bigger than females.
The coast seems clear, but Ike is yet to notice that another gator is also in the pond. And this one is a gigantic 400-pound male.
Generally speaking, the larger the alligator, the greater potential problem with an attack on a human.
Ike gets on with his job. The limited visibility means he can't see the 10-foot gator coming straight at him. A gator determined to protect his new territory.
I was just about ready to come out of the water. I had enough air left. Life was good. I was just working away at it.
And that's when the gator moves in.
All of a sudden something clicked at the alligator and it says, I'm going to go ahead and give this a try.
Searing pain shoots through Ike.
The horrific force, the slamming effect, the excruciating pain, and I knew it was going to be life or death.
Like a sledgehammer, the gator's jaws slam down on his shoulder with 2,000 pounds of pressure.
Teeth are very sharp and they can lacerate and tear, but they don't actually sever like a shark's teeth will do. So an alligator's teeth are mainly meant for holding on.
The pain, in all honesty, on a scale of 1 to 10 was an 11. I have never felt that kind of pain before in my life.
If the prey item's too big to swallow whole, they'll try and spin off pieces.
Ike sees his left shoulder disappear into the gator's jaws. One quick spin, and his arm could be ripped right off.
I couldn't bring my arm back to me, so I thought I had already lost my arm.
Ike stares right into the eye of a monster.
That big, lifeless, dead eye, that look, that eye was right here. I tried getting up and going for the bank.
Incredibly, he crawls towards shore with the alligator still latched onto his shoulder. Seeing two golfers nearby, he desperately tries to get their attention. They can barely believe what they're seeing. Ike is fighting for his life.
I said to myself, you have got to keep your head together here.
Hey! Over here!
Ike can't last much longer, and he knows it. As well as being ripped apart, he could easily drown. Retrieving golf balls in a pond at a country club in Tampa, Florida, Ike Monreal has been attacked by a vicious 400-pound gator. His screams attract terrified golfers desperate to help save him. The shore is only a few more feet away. Rescue is within grasp. And then Ike's gone.
He had such size and girth, he just dragged me right back down again.
An alligator will try and get the victim off balance, trying to drag them out to deeper water. And once it's drowned, then they will dine on it at their leisure.
Ike struggles. He needs to make sure that he keeps his oxygen supply. Without it, he will die in minutes.
I said to myself, you pass out, the regulator falls out of your mouth, and you're gonna die here. That's when I prayed to God.
For Ike, it's now or never. He needs to do something, and fast.
I worked my hand around his snout. I was able to turn into him. My shoulder is as far back into his jaw as it can go.
Ike jams his thumb in the reptile's eye.
The most vulnerable part of an alligator is probably its eyes. Everything else is pretty well protected.
But the move barely phases the gator.
Well, an alligator might expect to have slight pressure to its eye if it grabs a large prey item.
Ike could be seconds from dying. He reaches back with everything he's got.
That's when I stuck my thumb as far back into his eye and as down as far as I could.
The move stuns the gator.
But then when he went further in, this was something that was totally unexpected by the alligator.
He just went ballistic. The bite got worse, and that's when he tried to roll me.
They will grab a hold of an appendage and then spin in the water to try and get that appendage torn off.
He's in so much pain, Ike can't keep his thumb in the gator's eye socket.
I was thinking that it was, you know, the demise. The end was there. I saw my wife and my 3 teenage sons looking down at me. And I said, that's not going to work. I said, I'm not going to die out here. I am not going to give up. Whatever it takes, I'm coming out of the water.
Luckily, the fight takes them into the shallows. At last, Ike can get a foothold. Now he can stop the gator from rolling him.
I was not going to let him kill me. I was not going to let him drown me.
And then Ike goes in for another attack.
I certainly wasn't going to let him sit there and twist off whatever he had in his mouth. I took my thumb again, took a deep breath, and slammed into his eye socket, and I swear I got halfway to his brain.
Alligators can feel and react to pain. They don't like that.
Against all odds, the giant's jaws finally snap open. Ike seizes the opportunity and desperately tries to get out of the water.
They learned very fast and probably realized this was not the type of thing that it wanted to pursue.
Ike scrambles onto the bank before the gator changes his mind and comes back.
I looked up at the gentleman that was standing on the green. I said, just make sure he doesn't come out of the water after me. I said, I don't think I can handle another bite.
The alligator swims away.
He went out into the deeper part of the swamp. And at that point, I knew I was safe.
Are you all right? Are you okay?
He dislocated my shoulder. My shoulder wasn't attached anymore. There were teeth holes 1 inch across, 1.5 inches deep over the shoulder.
Careful. Paramedics on their way.
It's bad, but things could have been far worse. Ike's 17-year-old son had originally been scheduled to work that day.
He wouldn't have had the size or the experience. The horrific fact of all of this is I would have lost my son.
Ike may never fully regain the use of his arm. He and his sons have not returned to the water since the attack.
My sons do not dive anymore. My business is Ike and Sons. My boys I'll not let go in the water anymore. So do I want to get even? You betcha.
4 hours after the attack, a state-licensed trapper captures an 8-foot alligator from the lake, 50 feet from the scene of the crime.
If we didn't do that, there is no doubt there would be a lot more attacks because alligators become habituated, and if they have a successful attack, they'll come back for another one.
Ike doesn't believe the trapper got the one that wanted him as prey.
I think she trapped the smaller, the 7.5, 8-footer that was there. And I do not think to this day that it was that smaller gator.
In that case, the gator that nearly killed him is still out there. Alligators can prove lethal in the southern U.S., but in Africa and Australia, the biggest threat to humans is their deadlier cousin. Crocodiles kill as many as 200 people every year. The largest and most aggressive is a saltwater crocodile, a powerful reptile that can outlive humans and grow to more than 20 feet in length. Despite the name, their natural habitat is actually freshwater rivers and swamps. What makes them so deadly is their uncanny camouflage. In September 1872, Australian Constable William Davis decided to break police regulations and take a refreshing swim in Darwin Harbor. Davis spotted a log floating some distance out and swam over to it. Suddenly, the log started swimming towards him, very quickly. Davis soon realized it was a saltwater crocodile that had left a river and headed into the harbor. But it was too late. As Davis started to swim away, the croc zeroed in, its jaws crashing down on his head. Constable William Davis became the first police fatality in Australia's Northern Territory. More than 100 years later, amateur diver Jeff Tanswell was also savaged by a saltwater croc. It turned a snorkeling trip into a bloody battle for his life.
A little screamy. Don't let him eat me. Just don't let him eat me.
Come on, grab my hand.
Northern Australia. Protected by law, the saltwater croc population has swelled nearly 5,000% over the last 30 years to as many as 150,000. They are man-eaters, and no stretch of water anywhere is safe. On a tidal river, this 12-footer is looking for its next meal.
their diet consists usually of fish and crabs, crustaceans, small mammals, that kind of thing. But an 18-foot crocodile can drag down a buffalo if it really wants to.
Although he normally hunts in rivers, today he heads out into the open sea.
People have seen saltwater crocodiles swimming past oil rigs and past boats just in the middle of the ocean. And so what's this crocodile doing? It's just swimming from one point to another.
On Thursday Island, at the northern tip of Queensland, 37-year-old Police Sergeant Jeff Tanswell and his wife Jane, also a trained police officer, are hitting the water for a day of fun in the sun.
My entire life I've been brought up by the water. So we've always been brought up with boats and diving and fishing, and that's just second nature.
If we go fishing, or we'd just go out and have a look and jump out on a reef.
Hi! Hey! Hi!
Today they plan on doing some spear fishing with their friends Amanda and Dave. They head towards the remote Adolphus Islands, an hour away.
We haven't been there before, so this is going to be another opportunity for us to explore.
The ocean around here is dangerous.
We're a bit, I guess, aware of the possibility of sharks being in the water.
It's something that's always stored in the back of your head. Let's just enjoy the ride, but let's be aware. Keep an eye out for a shark.
The last thing on Jeff's mind is running into an aggressive saltwater croc.
All I knew was that crocodiles inhabit the coastline, and they need to go from river to river to river. And they do not go out to sea. And that was what I was brought up with.
But he's wrong, dead wrong. A wandering killer croc is also headed to the Adolphus Islands on a collision course with Jeff's party. They pull into a coral reef and scout for any signs of predators.
We were making sure that there was no sharks or anything in the water that was dangerous, but we didn't see any sharks.
If there's going to be a shark, he's going to be patrolling the deep water. So I'm not going to go there. I'm going to take the safer option, and I'm going to go in closer to the coast.
Amanda and Dave are the first ones in. Because they're entering unfamiliar waters, Jeff asks his wife to stay on board.
You have to leave someone on the boat just for safety. If you catch a fish, if it bleeds, you don't want to have fish blood in the water. Could attract sharks, so if they catch a fish or crayfish or something, they just hold it up and I'll start the boat, go over.
Jeff enters deep in an alien world where he is both the hunter and the potential prey.
You can see all the little colourful fish dancing around in amongst all this brightly lit coral. I saw the other two diving with us. They started heading out a bit wide. And I remember thinking, I'm not comfortable diving out to where the coral edge is, where it drops off into the deeper water, because sharks could come and go.
But sharks are not the problem. The hungry 12-foot saltwater croc is closing in.
I remember a little voice in the back of my head's going, there could be other big things out here.
The giant croc quietly stalks Jeff and his friends. It's breeding season, and like all crocs, he's more aggressive than usual. Jeff heads up for air.
I just thought I'd been hit by a boat. The fear that a predator instills in its prey is it's bottomless.
No matter how fast you move, If a crocodile's head is half a meter from you and it strikes, you cannot possibly get away.
Jane can't quite make out what's going on.
And it all happened within a matter of a split second. I remember staring at that bit of water going, did I just see what I saw, or is it my imagination?
The crocodile clamps down on Jeff's head.
I've become aware of this pressure on my head, this crushing pressure on my head.
The crocodiles have got the strongest jaw muscles of any animal that we know for their size. They've got about 66, sometimes 68 teeth in their jaws. They'll puncture through flesh, they'll go through shell, and they'll even go into bone.
Jeff is dragged down with his head ripped open. He's bleeding heavily and running out of air.
He's just gone down with no splash, no screaming, no kicking.
Jeff! Jeff!
I had no feeling of the water, the temperature, sounds, everything, sight, everything was gone. They've got the power just to shut down your entire system and you don't have a say in it. It was a mixture of just horror as well as just total disbelief. You're on a remote tropical coral island. You're not looking for a crocodile.
Jane starts the boat to stop it drifting. She has absolutely no idea that her husband below is being drowned by a giant croc.
I could feel by my neck muscles that he's pulling me down to the sea floor by my head.
That is one of the things that a crocodile will do if it wants to overpower its prey. Most animals can't hold their breath for anything like as long as a crocodile can.
Jeff knows he can't stay under for more than a couple of minutes.
Trying to stop what's going on, but I can't. He's just too big, too strong. I remember kicking badly with my fins. You're just in overload. I don't know if it's adrenaline or what, it's all your senses trying to work overtime to save you.
And then, a miracle.
I remember seeing the jaws release and the sudden burst of light, and I just shot to the surface.
I saw his head come up and him blow the water out of his snorkel.
Jeff has no idea where the croc is and when it might bite again.
All that was going through my head was his big block head coming back up and grabbing my legs.
And then just behind his head, I thought I saw something moving.
The killer croc surfaces inches away, closing in on his prey.
I could feel the warm blood running down the side of my face. He's got the teeth, he's got the scales, he's got the claws, he's got everything. You have nothing.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was the most unexpected thing.
I remember looking at this thing and then the brains kicked into gear going, we've got to try and survive this.
The croc slowly circles. It sizes up Jeff from every angle. It could rip him apart at any moment.
If the prey is large, then it will produce what's known as the death roll. And then it spins its entire body. If a crocodile grabs me on the arm and starts to spin, the weak point here is at the elbow or at the shoulder, and that's where it will dislocate.
We all know that these things come back to finish you off.
Jeff realizes he may only have minutes to live. Police Sergeant Jeff Tanswell has been brutally attacked by a saltwater crocodile in Queensland, Australia. And now his wife, Jane, also a trained officer, is desperate to save him before the croc finishes him off.
Straight away, you just think, this is it. Someone's gonna die here. I just had to try and get him out of the water.
Jeff's frantic movements are only making matters worse. He needs to get back to the boat before the reptile returns for more.
If you splash and splash and splash, the croc can feel that, it can hear it, and it's more likely to attract it back to the place.
Stuck my head in the water a couple of times, just trying to see where the hell he went.
Next minute, I had the boat beside him and I was helping him in the boat from the left-hand side of the boat. I don't know how I pulled him out of the water. I think it was just a pure adrenaline.
You're okay. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm right here, okay?
Concerned about their friends, Jane swings the boat around to the other side of the bay and finds Amanda and Dave unharmed. But the monster croc is still somewhere below.
Get some towels, cover.
Everyone may be safely in the boat, but Jeff's wounds are serious. I got a puncture hole in my left cheek. I got a laceration on my left temple. The left ear was torn. And I got lacerations behind both my ears where the teeth went in, and scratches on my back where his claws went in. It's essential Jeff gets to the hospital as quickly as possible, but they are a good hour away from the coast.
He could have a brain injury. He could have some sort of compression on his brain. He could have a stroke.
He could also be infected by the croc.
Its teeth are covered in mud, covered in bacteria. It's a breeding ground for bacteria. If that crocodile then bites you, it drives those bacteria deep into your flesh, and it can cause a much bigger problem than the bite itself.
Crocs kill as many as 200 people a year. And right now, Jeff looks like he might join that gruesome club.
We got to the hospital and went straight into the emergency room.
I had all my wounds scraped and washed out, which was quite painful. And then they microsurgery my ear and stitched everything back together.
He owes his life to Jane's quick rescue and pure luck.
Certainly, if it wanted to kill him, it would have.
Jeff knows all too well how close he came to death.
There is nothing as terrifying as realizing that this thing is going to come along and eat you, and you can't do a thing about it. No further attacks were reported in the Adolphus Island region that summer. Most likely, the saltwater crocodile returned to the coast and headed upriver. The worst saltwater croc attack is said to have happened in World War II during the Battle of Ramree Island in Burma. Surrounded by British troops, a group of Japanese soldiers desperately tried to escape through mangrove swamps infested with saltwater crocs. The next morning, only 20 survivors were found. Nearly 400 may have been devoured by the hungry crocs. The Guinness Book of World Records ranked the attack as the worst animal disaster in history. But crocodiles are by no means the most dangerous animal in the water. That title falls to the hippo, Africa's most deadly creature. Weighing as much as a small pickup truck, hippos kill around 200 people in Africa each year. For millennia, they have been a deadly threat to people living throughout Africa. The mighty Egyptians had the most to fear. Hippos used to live all along the Nile, the lifeblood of their civilization. They were a danger to boats and to people working on the river's edge. The animals were considered so powerful, they were associated with gods. Kings hunted them from royal ships. It was a brutally dangerous sport. In around 3100 BC, Menes, the first king of unified Egypt, is said to have been carried off and killed by a hippopotamus during such a hunt, ending his 62-year reign. More than 5,000 years later, while leading a river safari in Zimbabwe, guide Paul Templar also found out just how brutal a hippo attack can be.
I had tusks going through me every which way but loose.
There was a lot of blood in the water. You could see he'd been quite badly bitten.
the Zambezi, one of the largest rivers in Africa, and home to this huge male hippo. The lone bull is particularly aggressive. It probably recently lost a fight with another male and was thrown out of its pod or herd. And now he's viciously protecting his new territory.
Hippos respond the same way we would if someone repeatedly broke into our homes, with extreme aggression.
The bachelor bull has attacked 7 people in the last few months, defending its turf. And he's more than ready to do it again. Zimbabwe River guide Paul Templar is enjoying a quiet afternoon off when he's unexpectedly asked for a special favor.
Hey, good. That's how you doing. That's cool. All good.
Hey guys, I got plans. Go to Sunset Cruise.
I was sitting in the pub when the folks came in and said, hey, we need a guide. So now I had a tough choice to make. Do I spend the rest of my day sitting in the pub, or do I go and lead the canoe safari?
No, for today. Okay. Let's go.
I went and led the canoe safari.
It's a decision he would soon regret.
Good afternoon, guys. My name's Paul. We are the crew responsible for taking you down this Zambezi River this afternoon. It's going to be a fantastic
Paul is joined by 3 other guides: Ben, Evans, and his close friend, Mike McNamara. It's a trip they've done lots of times before.
The trip itself is what we call a wine route. It's one of the trips where the guests don't actually paddle themselves. And the idea is that they just relax and watch the sun go down. It's a sunset trip. It lasts about an hour and a half.
The idea was just to sit back and relax and take in everything that nature had to offer.
Paul is on the lookout for the rogue hippo that has attacked 7 others over the last few months. He's already had his own nasty run-in with the 3-ton monster.
About 6 months prior to this, I'd been leading a similar canoe safari, and I'd been attacked by a big brute of a hippo.
The hippo had smacked the bottom of Paul's canoe, catapulting him and 2 passengers into the water. That time, they had escaped unharmed.
I knew that that hippo was in the area, and though I couldn't see him, I thought going through the narrow channels would be my safest option.
And so far, so good. As they come around the bend, Paul notices a large pod of hippos.
They weren't really a concern. They were off to the side, and I could see them, and I felt that I had a pretty good sense of what they were up to.
They proceed cautiously, making sure they don't startle the hippos. Paul also scans the water for any that are submerged.
Occasionally you'll get ears, occasionally you'll get a head, occasionally you'll get the whole body. Then there'll be nothing. They'll all disappear underwater. You watch the water's moving differently if there's a couple of ton hippo moving around beneath it.
All seems to be going well. They safely get past the pod into faster moving water. And then
I turned just in time to see Evans flying through the air.
Likely it's the same rogue hippo. From underwater, he surfaced like a giant torpedo and knocked Evans clear out of the boat. Paul watches in horror as the current drags Evans away.
Evans went under and then popped up again.
Paul paddles full speed towards Evans.
I turn my canoe around, so I'm going backwards, so I'm between whatever's there and him. I back in to try to rescue him.
Paul reached for him with a paddle, shouting to him to grab the paddle so that he could pull him out.
I'm probably 4 or 5 feet away from him when I see this bow wave cruising in towards me.
And it was at that point where the hippo just erupted next to Paul.
While he's trying to help his friend, the hippo turns on Paul and attacks.
Just all hell broke loose.
The hippo just closed its jaws on his upper torso and pulled him off the boat.
The hippo tries to swallow Paul whole.
They attack the boats not because they recognize I will get to the people in here, but because they recognize it as a foreign object that needs to be removed.
I remember this incredible pressure crushing down on my lower back.
Hippos are not interested in eating the people that get attacked. It's an aggressive reflex of, if I encounter something with my jaw, I will crush it. So the crushing comes from the hydraulic press that is their jaw, somewhere on the order of maybe 1,800 pounds. What the canines do is act as hole punchers. They can go through anything. They are strong, they are massive, they are sharp.
Paul is kicking and clawing for his life. He needs to get out from the mouth of the beast. Evans also needs urgent help. He's in danger of drowning in the strong currents. There's nothing fellow guide Mike can do.
We couldn't get to Evans because the hippo was in the way.
Finally, Paul's aggressive struggling pays off.
Pushed and pulled. At one point, the monster loosened his grip long enough for me to escape. I just sucked in a lung full of fresh air, and I came face to face with Evans.
But Evans doesn't look right at all.
I got the sense that all was not well. He wasn't going anywhere. I think terror and panic had quite literally overwhelmed him.
For Evans, it's too late. He's drowned in the strong current.
He literally just rolled his eyes up and he sank and he was dead.
And that's when the hippo zeroes in on Paul again.
At this point, it was all up to the hippo, and really, there's nothing you can do.
This time, the hippo is clamped down on Paul's legs, tearing into skin and bones.
The hippo started the attack and was not going to finish the aggressive behavior until the intruders were gone.
It happened very quickly, and you could see that it was a serious attack, that there was going to be some serious injuries out of this.
They don't just try to win, they try to destroy their opponent. One of the clients watching later said that it was like watching a vicious dog, literally just trying to rip apart a rag doll. His huge tusks tearing through my torso as he drove me underwater. So I had tusks going through me every which way but loose. He bit down so hard that I thought for sure he was going to bite me in half.
The hippo has speared Paul badly, and now he starts dragging him down to drown him.
I remember lying on the bottom of the river and looking up. I remember I could see the different hues of green and yellow and the sunlight shining on the water surface. And I thought to myself, I wonder who can hold their breath the longest.
Paul is close to death. Most humans can't go without breathing for much more than a minute, while the hippo can stay under 5 times longer.
Fighting for territory is just second nature to hippos, and fighting to the death is second nature. They don't hold back at all.
I watched my blood mingle with the water, and I just wondered which would happen first, if I'd bleed to death or if I'd drown.
During a bloody hippo attack in Zimbabwe, Africa, one man has died, while another, river guide Paul Templar, has been gored by the creature's teeth and dragged to the river floor. And now, Paul is also drowning. All anyone can do is look on helplessly.
The amount of blood that was in the water showed that Paul had been bitten very badly.
There's no sign anywhere of Paul. There's no way he could have survived a second attack.
I didn't think I'd see him again. And then Paul popped up.
But then the hippo spat me out again, giving me another chance to escape.
Barely alive, Paul is bleeding badly. Mike guns forward on his kayak to save him. He knows there's not a second to lose.
I was just shouting to him to grab the front of the kayak.
I managed to grab a hold of the handle on the boat's nose.
For a moment, Paul seems safe. But the hippo comes back for more. It tries to chomp down on Paul's dangling legs. Any second, he'll be dragged down again.
He was hitting and thrashing, and it was not good. I knew I didn't have much left in me.
He can barely hold on. One arm is shredded. Both shoulders are punctured with bites. But astoundingly, the hippo backs off.
They're very unlikely to actually come into shallower water to follow an attack. It's not what they do.
To get to the shallows, Mike has to fight the current. Paul is losing his grip.
I was bleeding profusely. I was getting weaker.
Paul hangs on. Mike paddles wildly. It's a race against time.
I paddled to a point where there was a tuft of grass on a small rock sticking out of the river.
The longer it lasted, the more it sapped my energy.
Finally, they reach the shallows.
I don't know how we do it, but Mac dragged me out of there.
The hippo then stopped the attack, moved back, and popped up, but not actually following us into the shallower water.
Out of his element, the hippo gives up the chase.
Oh, I got you, buddy. Just hang in there.
Paul is barely alive.
Oh, hang on, look at me. Look at me, buddy. Just keep breathing. We got you.
He needs medical attention desperately. To make matters worse, the first aid kit and a radio have both washed away.
His arm, from what we could see without ripping the sleeve off, had been bitten through the bone 2 or 3 times. It was shattered. And a bite mark through the shoulder that you could virtually see daylight through. He was bitten through the foot.
Look at me. Look at me, Paul. Look at me. Stay with me. Something that's working.
Mike and fellow guide Ben try to stop Paul from bleeding to death.
And started literally putting pressure on arteries to try and just stem the bleeding that was still coming.
I can feel my lungs full of blood, man.
Thinking fast, Mike uses the only thing available, cling wrap from the safari meals. They seal all visible puncture wounds on Paul's chest. Mike and Ben lift Paul into a canoe.
When I put him in the boat and sent him off, I thought he was going to die.
Hold on.
He definitely didn't look as though with those injuries he could survive.
The only way out is right through the killer hippo's territory.
What we're seeing is an animal under stress. The first time that someone breaks into your house, maybe you won't fight them off. The second time, maybe you'll fight them off a bit more. By the 10th time, you're armed and ready to go.
But as we were pulling out and this angry hippo was still there, I thought for sure he was going to come and finish me off.
But the hippo chooses to stay put, and Paul is quickly taken downriver. By chance, along the way, they meet a local medical crew conducting emergency drills.
There's a shock trauma team who are just practicing. Just go figure, a couple of minutes away.
They take Paul on an 8-hour drive to the hospital, where he learns that his arm is beyond repair.
They took off part of this arm. They took it off just above the elbow to start with. I got gas gangrene, which meant that my body was rotting from the inside. So they ended up having to chop more of me off.
In the end, his arm is amputated. Mike and the river raft clients are rescued later that night. A search party is sent out for Evans.
It was a full 2 days before we found his body quite a bit further downstream. It had washed up.
The rogue hippo is never found.
have this memory of blood pouring out of my face onto the ground. We were all gonna die.
I knew I'd be bitten. It's panic, fear, terror. You're scared.
It was so completely overpowering. He just ripped my face off. I told myself I'd rather die.
It's everyone's worst nightmare, being eaten alive by a wild animal. In this episode, 3 remarkable stories of people who've been savaged by distant cousins of man's best friend. What's it like to become human prey? On a canoeing holiday in the Canadian wilderness, the Delventhal family was savagely attacked by a lone wolf.
There was nothing we could do to stop a wolf that wanted to eat us.
Algonquin Park, Ontario. A vast landscape of forests, lakes, and rivers. A popular destination for hikers and nature lovers. And home to predators, including the eastern wolf.
The conventional wisdom in North America is that wolves are basically harmless. But it became crystal clear that there were circumstances under which the wolves would be dangerous.
This adult wolf has been expelled from his pack. Forced to fend for himself, he's become an opportunistic predator, scavenging kills and raiding campsites. And he's starting to lose his natural fear of people.
That's it. Just keep paddling straight on in. How you doing, guys? Yeah, just follow me in.
The Delventhal family is near the end of a 9-day canoe trip to some of the park's most remote areas.
All right, then.
We wanted to get away from people, get away from human contact, really get as much as possible into nature to appreciate it as a family.
Yeah, dig right in there.
It had been one of the best trips, probably one of the high points of our lives together as a family.
As the day ends, the Delventhals look for a place to set up camp.
Hey, Tracy, how about right over here? The perfect spot, isn't it? All right. Great job, guys. Well
They're
done.
unaware that something else has also picked this site.
We got ourselves a camp set up, get the fire going.
The wolf gravitated to the campsite because that was a place where in the past it may have smelled food, experienced food.
Although both parents just want to kick back and relax, their older boys have plans of their own.
You're dead.
We wanted to go out on the water and see the sunset. And our parents had very strict rule that me and my brother Eli were not allowed out in the canoes without one of them in the canoe. So we needed to convince one of our parents to go out with us.
What do you say, Mom?
We're gonna stay here and make dinner, and you boys go ahead.
Tom and his 2 older sons set off in the canoe. He has no idea a hungry wolf may now be sizing up their little brother.
About 80% of the attacks are aimed at children. And children are being taken while they are still struggling and screaming and are being carried off.
As Tom and his boys paddle further away from their campsite, they bump into other canoeists who tell them about an old Algonquin Park tradition.
You ready? Let's do it.
The wolf call.
We sort of bunched all the canoes together and started howling, you know, more or less in unison, doing our best to sound like wolves.
When you howl, you let the pack know that you are another wolf and you're encroaching on its territory.
The lone wolf closes in, possibly worried that rivals may attempt to steal his tempting evening meal.
The forest around the site was really thick. You couldn't see into the forest at all. And I heard something and just saw the side of something.
Oh, good timing, guys. It's just ready. Grab some balls.
Tom arrives back with his older sons.
Well,
The wolf is likely scared away for now.
All right, boys, time for bed. We got a long day tomorrow.
It's been such a perfect evening that Tom and Tracy decide not to pitch the tents. The Delventhals will sleep under the stars. But sleeping outside makes the family vulnerable.
My mom put Willem, who was only 3, in between me and Eli, who were considerably larger than him. Me, Willem, and Eli were down in our own little group.
and I am going to sleep like a log.
Tom and I, we were lying out under the stars and agreed that it was the most peaceful, grounded, safe that we'd ever felt in our lives. And talked about how blessed we were, that this was a glorious place.
There is something quite wonderful about lying down and seeing the stars, but I was 12 and I was a little bit more scared of the world and scared of the dark.
The ravenous wolf bides his time. He waits until the family is still. His sights are firmly set on the children.
I was dreaming that I was walking through the woods with my parents, and it was sunny, and we were just sort of walking and talking.
Finally, the wolf makes his move. He zeroes in on the most accessible prey, Zach.
While I was dreaming, there was definitely a sensation of pressure on my face.
The wolf, as a killing machine, is extremely powerful. They really slice through tissues and meat and muscles and tendons. It's very severe.
Incredibly, Zach keeps on sleeping.
And it felt like I was being dragged. Felt like I was sort of strapped to the front of a jet. Everything started rushing by really, really quickly, and that was the point when I woke up.
Startled, the wolf runs back into the forest.
It was one long, ripping scream. It was blood-curdling.
Zach, what's wrong? What's wrong? What is it?
He kept saying, "Something bit me."
What happened? Something bit you?
But they still have no idea what bit him.
It was at that point that my thermals were getting wet and warm. And he started saying, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And so I realized that he was bleeding profusely from the face.
I sat there trying to gather myself, and I looked through the darkness to where they were huddled together, and then I saw the wolf.
Yeah! Yeah! Go on!
I was being as big as I could be and as loud as I could be. I had to get away from my wife and child.
He ran right past us, and we could hear it running into the woods and whacking trees and bushes and stuff. And I was trying to hold Zach and figure out what was going on.
The animal retreats.
The wolf!
And I immediately started panicking. Could kill the whole family.
Hey, baby.
I kept just pulling him down and whispering, You have to stay calm. We have to stay calm. We have to stay quiet. We have to know where it is.
But with only a flashlight, the family has no idea where the wolf is hiding, whether it's vanished or simply biding its time.
Wolves have a marvelous tapetum lucidum, which is the technical name for a membrane in the back of the eye which reflects light. And so wolves can see at night much better than we can.
The wolf is probably watching the family's every move. He will choose the best moment to resume his attack.
I thought we were all gonna die. I thought that there was nothing we could do to stop a wolf that wanted to eat us.
On a canoeing trip to Algonquin Park, Ontario, the Delventhal family has fought off a savage attack by a lone wolf.
Go on!
They're terrified it will strike again.
First thing I found was my paddle. It was the biggest of all of the paddles. And I went back to where he had disappeared and stood there for about half a minute till I was satisfied that he was gone.
You right? Let me see. Let me see.
My dad came up in front of me and shone the light in my face.
Let me see. Simon.
The first thing I saw was the terror and the fear in his eyes. And I could see that his cheek was totally torn through. I just kind of stopped and said, "Oh my God."
I mean, it was slow and it was horrified and hopeless. And it was all there, and the oh my God, and the look on his face. And I knew it was worse than I thought it was.
Again, the hungry wolf emerges from the forest. Now he moves in for the kill.
And my dad turned and charged it and followed it out into the woods.
It was really scary, but I was gonna beat him. I was gonna destroy it.
Go on! Get out of here!
The trees wrapped around him, and he was gone. He disappeared.
Tom, come on!
I thought if he doesn't come back, how am I gonna protect these kids on my own?
My immediate thought was that I wasn't going to see him again.
It was the darkest night I can ever remember, but all of my senses were really, really sharpened, and I felt like I could see exactly where he was.
Armed with his makeshift weapon, Tom now has the upper hand.
Wolves, in all their killing activities, have to respect one thing. They're basically hypochondriacs. Safety for them is paramount.
Self-preservation wins over hunger. The animal retreats, for now. Seizing the moment, the Delventhals make their escape.
Take that right on there. That's it. See that? Yeah. Put this on there. Hold that on there. That's it. All right, we gotta get out of here. Off we go. Here we go. Down here, let me talk to you. Let's go, guys. Let's go. Hey, Will, Eli, you guys all right? Hey, let's go, baby. Let's go. Tracy, let's go. Zach, hold on.
There was this moment of pushing off the site, and then I remember just going, because I knew at least the wolf couldn't get us now.
The family may have escaped the wolf's jaws, but Zach is still in terrible danger. He's losing blood fast.
Hold on, son. You'll be all right.
I thought about dying, so I was just sort of peacefully lying in the boat and figured I could slip away now and it would be easy. What changed my thinking was thinking about my family and thinking about how much they would all miss me.
I was very aware that he might have lost a lot of blood, and that there was a lot further to go. We couldn't find our way out, and that was just feeling like incredible powerlessness on my part. I was really angry at myself, frustrated with myself, and frustrated with the situation.
After 3 long hours, the family sees a glimmer of light. They arrive at a lodge, but the hospital is still another 4 hours away. Zach undergoes 4 hours of emergency surgery. His nose is broken in 5 places, and it takes over 80 stitches to repair his badly lacerated face.
Sheer luck that the wolf didn't grab part of the neck. With the tremendous bite force of the wolf, Zach would not have survived that. I'm very lucky.
They took Zachariah into a triage room, and it was that moment. It was the first time that I looked at him, because I thought, okay, now we're safe, and I can see. And his face was just ripped apart.
Even after the doctor had Zach and was doing what he could to put Zach's face back together again, the reaction was, well, it couldn't have been a wolf. And they treated me very much like I was hallucinating, or just a stupid geek from the city, or, you know, somebody who just didn't understand, obviously, because wolves don't do that.
The scars themselves really aren't that visible.
But the psychological trauma leads to months of severe panic attacks.
The therapist said, what happened is deep and primal, because you're supposed to be safe when you're asleep. He didn't know it was coming. None of us knew it was coming.
Park rangers decide the lone wolf poses a serious threat to other campers. 5 days after the attack, they find the animal they believe terrorized the Delventhals and shoot it dead. But Zach doesn't blame the wolf for what happened.
I'm not really any more or less afraid of wolves than I was before, and I have a great respect for them and a great admiration for them. But they're always potentially dangerous.
Throughout history, wolf attacks have been the stuff of nightmare and legend. No ordinary creatures. In mythology, they often represented evil, even the Antichrist. Not even death could safeguard people from the wolf's jaws. In 16th century Scotland, bodies were often buried on islands to stop wolves digging them up and eating them. No European settlement, it seemed, was safe. In 1879, in a village in southern Finland, a pair of wolves went on a bloody rampage. As many as 35 children were killed. Eventually, the Finnish army was called in, but the wolves proved elusive. It took 2 long years to halt their terrifying reign. The female wolf was shot dead. The alpha male poisoned. By hunting in packs, wolves are highly efficient killers. Sometimes not even a gun will stop them dead. A woodsman living in Springfield, Missouri in the early 1900s learned this the hard way. Ambushed by a furious wolf pack, he fought a heroic battle for his life, but overpowered before he could reload his rifle. He was later found ripped apart, surrounded by 5 dead wolves. Ever since the first white settlers arrived in North America, wolves have been relentlessly hunted and killed. But in their place, their canine cousin, the coyote, has flourished. Increasingly, the ever-adaptable coyote has moved into urban areas. And increasingly, humans come face to face with them. One afternoon in his yard, Jimmy Hawthorne ran into a wild coyote. A coyote with rabies.
I couldn't believe what was happening. I knew I'd be bitten. It was scary.
This coyote has lost all sense of reality. He's suffering from rabies. The disease in his brain has eradicated any fear of people. All he wants to do is attack.
Most likely the coyote encountered a rabid raccoon. They tangled and the raccoon bit the coyote.
The rabid animal has left his natural habitat behind. He's now in the residential neighborhood of Lenaxa, Virginia, and is a deadly threat to anyone who crosses his path. 47-year-old Jimmy Hawthorne is working in his yard on a lazy Sunday afternoon. His wife is inside, taking a nap.
It was a normal day. I was actually using the lawnmower to blow the leaves off the yard.
Jimmy is completely unaware that he's being watched.
I probably see coyotes once a month, and then when they see you, they're gone. They're scared of humans.
But not this coyote. Driven by the lethal virus, he's desperate to bite anything or anyone.
Rabies virus infection is transmitted in the saliva and often deposited in skin, subcutaneous tissues, or muscle, and then eventually spreads along nerves to the central nervous system.
The diseased coyote closes in on Jimmy.
I was just sort of in my own little world, riding on a piece of equipment, and it startled me. I mean, my first thought was, it was a German Shepherd. And then I looked and I said, oh my goodness, it's a coyote.
Horrified, Jimmy realizes this coyote is rabid.
At that point, it was just terror, scary.
Rabies is almost always fatal if not treated immediately.
Well, there have only been 6 survivors of rabies. We don't fully understand why the outcome is always fatal, but clearly the immune response isn't sufficient to clear the viral infection.
And was driving the mole as fast as it would go. The coyote was having no trouble keeping up. The coyote kept circling the mole.
Fueled by a wave of aggression, the coyote seizes opportunity and strikes.
He bit my boot. I felt him bite the boot. I mean, I couldn't believe what was happening. I just remembered that moment of fear, of terror. It was scary.
Luckily, the coyote's bite doesn't pierce Jimmy's thick leather boot. Jimmy needs to make it home before it does. But then, his mower runs out of gas and stops dead.
My thoughts were, oh my goodness, something scares you to death. And And then it's like you have to take care of yourself, protect yourself.
Jimmy must either risk running for his life or taking on the rabid animal.
This animal might weigh 50 pounds, and I weigh 240. If it gets bad enough, you know, I'll just tear him apart with my hand. But I knew I'd be bitten. You don't see animals come up to you. I mean, I've been in the woods my whole life. Deer don't walk up to you. Rabbits don't walk up to you. This animal had no fear of man. He would come around the tractor. You know, I didn't want him to bite me on the back of my leg, and I just turned around and faced him, and he came at me, and I kicked him. That's when he sort of hollered, yipped, and went into the thicket.
Because of his swelling brain, the rabid coyote is suffering terrible headaches. Jimmy's kick further disorients him. Jimmy's bought some time. But only a little.
I looked around and found a big stick about 8 foot long. And I said, well, I can use this to keep him off of it. And he was aggressive, extremely aggressive. Coyotes, canine teeth, are so much longer than, say, a Doberman. They're prepared to hunt and kill.
Wielding the stick, Jimmy scores a direct hit to the coyote's head. The crazed animal retreats, for now. Jimmy races for the house, but the door is locked. His wife still asleep. And the rabid coyote isn't yet done with Jimmy.
I'm knocking on the door, and then I see him running across the front yard, coming back.
The ever more aggressive coyote closes in for the kill. While mowing his lawn one Sunday afternoon, Virginian Jimmy Hawthorne is fought off an attack by a rabid coyote. Locked out of his house, Jimmy's now trapped by the deadly animal. A rabies victim suffers agonizing spasms in the throat, making it almost impossible to swallow. They develop neurological impairment and paralysis, finally progressing to coma, then death. Jimmy pounds on the door one last time to wake up his wife.
And thank goodness she got the door open. And I went in and I told her there's a rabid coyote after me. And I was looking for a gun.
The coyote refuses to give up. The rabies has infused him with blind courage. All he knows is he needs to bite. Jimmy has to end the battle now.
In the initial stages, it's panic, fear, terror.
Honey, you stay inside.
You're scared. And then that went away. Goes from fear to aggression. It almost makes you angry.
Leaving the sanctuary of home, Jimmy goes in search of the deranged animal. But this time, he's prepared.
Just a reflex action, I shot him. And killed him.
When the animal is tested, experts confirm the rabies virus. Thankfully, Jimmy is healthy, but the psychological trauma remains.
When I'd go to bed, I'd close my eyes and I would see the coyote coming at me.
Now, when doing the gardening, Jimmy and his wife are always on guard, just in case.
When the news originally did the story, when it happened, they said, how do you feel about that? And I said, well, you know, I would have rather been a lottery winner. So it was amazing to me how everything is nice. You're at home, it's a Sunday, you're working on your property, everything's calm, and then everything turns into chaos. It's scary, you know.
Rabies has terrified people for thousands of years. In the 16th century, a deadly epidemic swept across Europe. Stories of horrific attacks by mad animals foaming at the mouth entered popular folklore. Peasants in the countryside faced the greatest risk, but not even cities were safe. In 1450 in Paris, a pack of wolves, some probably rabid, created blind panic when they breached the city walls. 40 people were bitten and killed. The ferocious pack was lured into the heart of the city, close to Notre Dame Cathedral. There, a mob hell-bent on revenge stoned and speared the wolves to death. While the wolf and coyote have always posed a threat to humans in parts of North America, there's a much more dangerous animal at large. The powerful cougar, also known as a puma or mountain lion, is thought to have killed at least 18 people since records began. Aniela was almost one of them. While on a mountain bike ride with her friend, a cougar pounced and tried to snap her neck.
And you think, this is just a nightmare. I told myself I'd rather die.
The rugged canyons of Whiting Ranch Wilderness Park are a big draw for thrill-seeking mountain bikers. But here, taking a tumble is not the only hazard. The park is home to some spectacular and dangerous wildlife, including the feared cougar.
California Fish and Game gives a range of population from 4,000 to 6,000 cougars in California.
This 110-pound male cougar works alone.
They're very good at being top predators and surviving in the landscape. Their quickness, their agility, their smoothness of movement, they're just good at that.
The cougar has just taken a fresh kill.
They will immediately take them off into the brush, and that gives them cover and allows them to feed in peace. One cougar will have a territory of roughly 30 to 50 or more square miles.
The big cat buries what he doesn't eat for another time. He'll attack anything that threatens his food cache.
Always the slowpoke.
Even humans. Aniela, a personal trainer and ex-Marine, and her friend Deb Nichols meet up for a biking excursion. They choose Cactus Hill Trail because of its exciting twists and turns.
Ann and I got together because we have common riding styles. We tend to just like to ride hard and not talk a lot. I tend to take up sports where there's usually some rough play.
You have to be willing to get dirty, have to be willing to, get cuts and scrapes and maybe some poison oak along the way. But I love it for the adventure.
But today, Cactus Hill Trail will take them on a journey they won't soon forget. Ann and Debbie are heading straight into a death trap.
We were just kind of, coming into the downhill section. We were gonna finish the ride soon. All the climbing is done. And our goal was to make it out before it got dark.
The cougar jealously guards its precious food.
Mountain lions don't move very far from their kills. Once they've cached the kill, they tend to stay relatively nearby.
Just up the trail, another cyclist discovers an abandoned bicycle.
Hello?
He has no idea who it belongs to.
As I was first turning down that trail, Cactus Trail, when I came around one of the blind corners, we actually saw a man standing with his bike and then the second bike with no person. And my instinct was that they had stopped and that his friend was going to the bathroom. So honestly, I didn't really take it very seriously.
The cougar's heightened sense of hearing picks up the noisy cyclists. They're invading his territory. Debbie falls behind. The distance between them has made both more vulnerable. Thinking his food cache is threatened, the mountain lion moves into attack mode.
As I was moving down the trail, what caught my attention was I saw a flash of movement. I saw kind of a reddish-brown fur. Initially thought that I had startled a deer, and then the impact.
The cougar can leap a great distance in the realm of 20 to 30 feet and will jump on their back and bite the back of the neck.
The only thing I can liken it to would be if you're riding your bike and you got hit by a car from behind. That's what it felt like to me. I mean, the impact was unbelievable. I was face down and he was trying to bite at the back of my neck. And I knew, okay, this isn't a deer.
The lion's impetus is to kill as quickly and as efficiently as possible because that reduces its own energy expenditure and its own chance of harm.
I just couldn't believe that that had just happened to me. And you think, this is just a nightmare. This can't really be happening. You can't wrap your brain around it.
Ann's helmet protects her, for now. But the cougar is determined to win this battle.
If they don't kill with the first bite, they may move their bite gradually around to the front of the throat and take the prey down by asphyxiation.
You know, it was like nothing I've ever experienced before in my life. It was so completely overpowering. I could feel it actually hanging on to my shoulders. The lion's claws were dug into each of my shoulders, and he was trying to bite at the back of my neck. He was able to manipulate and move me around, release his grip and grab on again and just drag me.
I could hear Ann's cry, screaming, and it sounded unusual. It sounded like a siren over and over, and then just within an instant, I came around the corner and saw the mountain lion.
Debbie needs to think fast. In sheer desperation, she tries to scare the animal away.
He didn't even flinch.
They're very focused predators. They don't get distracted easily. They have to finish what they start.
Hey,
Risking her own life, Debbie does the only thing she can think of.
When I grabbed her leg, I thought, it was going to be something that would, alarm him at least, but it didn't. It didn't seem to faze him.
All it would have taken is one swipe from that line to take Debbie out. And she put herself in that situation where that was a very strong possibility.
And I, had a death grip on her calf area. I was just amazed at his strength.
I just remember watching her face and watching her hanging onto my leg and screaming at the top of her lungs.
Debbie's frantic attempts aren't working. She can't pry her friend loose.
I was very aware that he just basically ripped my face off.
An adult male cougar's powerful jaws are comprised of 30 razor-sharp teeth. Measuring as long as 2 inches, these massive canines are used to deliver a lethal bite. The other teeth are specialized in slicing and shearing flesh.
They're able to crush leg bones, femurs, large bones, and commonly eat the entire skull. They're very, very strong.
Anne is fighting a highly motivated killer and losing.
To be honest, that was the only time. It was for a split second, but I basically told myself I'd rather die.
I don't remember anything but his tail smacking in his eyes and thinking, I'm so close and I'm screaming so loud, why don't you let go of, her face?
A group of cyclists up the trail hear Debbie's screams. They arrive with Anne's life hanging by a thread.
I can't hold her much longer. I kept repeating that. I can't hold her much longer.
One of the cyclists calls for help as the others join in the fight. But it's almost too late. The animal's large canines sink into Anne's throat.
Once he locked down, things started to go black. I started kind of shooting stars. And I knew that was going to be the end.
Aniela is now on the edge of death, and her friend is powerless to help. Aniela has been savagely attacked by a cougar in a California national park. Her best friend and 2 passing cyclists struggle to save her before it's too late.
Dear God, please give me the strength to hold on to her. He's eventually gonna let go.
But the cougar is determined to finish the job.
Their focus is intense, even to the point of ignoring a certain amount of negative stimuli, rocks and sticks and things like that. They're very focused, but they do recognize that they're getting hit, and at some point, they potentially will give up.
One of the rocks finally hits its mark. The cougar relents and lets go. The attack may be over, but Anne's struggle to survive isn't. She needs medical attention urgently.
Stay down. Stay down. Give me a shirt.
When I came to, I was lying on my back at that point, and I felt as though I was drowning. And we realized that it was blood.
Come on.
Debbie is also fearful the cougar may want to finish what he started.
Hold her neck still.
Immediately thought, I just want to get out of this area. I felt very uneasy that he probably hadn't left, but that, he was close by.
They don't get rewarded by giving up easily. All of their evolutionary history dictates that once they start, they have to stick with it.
The paramedics arrive at the scene, but they fear she may not make it to the hospital in time.
My neck hurt so bad. Just every muscle was just torn. That's what it felt like. You know, it was so painful to even try to lift my head an inch.
And I just said to her, Ann, you're gonna make it, you're gonna be fine.
It's gonna be okay.
The cougar stays in the area, still protecting his food cache, while Ann is airlifted to the hospital. Surgeons tell Ann that the cougar's bites were millimeters away from ending her life.
My plastic surgeon told me he found 40 bite wounds to my neck alone, and then I had obviously severe wounds to my face. It wasn't gonna be a quick fix. This is not like one surgery, I'm back to normal. And then I realized I'm not ever gonna be back to normal.
Later that evening, park rangers locate the owner of the abandoned bicycle. He had been making his way down Cactus Hill Trail when his chain came off. Unaware, he was being watched. The animal struck with deadly force. The cougar likely snapped his victim's spinal cord in one bite.
Gosh, I can't believe that I'm still here. It kind of helped me to be so thankful that I was still alive, to realize that here this adult man had been killed, and I made it.
A team of park rangers has no choice but to track the man-eater. He's shot dead not 50 yards from his first kill. Unwilling until death to give it up.
I think they're gorgeous animals. I have a lot of respect for what they're capable of, appreciating that they need their space too. An experience like this obviously makes you appreciate your friends. Debbie, specifically, she risked her own life. That's true friendship.
Their domestic cousins may be household pets, but in the wild, hunger or disease can occasionally drive these animals to target human prey.